Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Ledoux, and I'm the Director of Hospitality and Restaurant Management at the Institute of Culinary Education. Welcome to this installment of our guest lecture series. As a reminder, this demonstration is being broadcast, so if you are watching online, please post your questions to the YouTube chat. And for our students and staff here today, please wait for us to pass around the microphone so we can all hear your questions. Our goal in these series of demos and lectures is to highlight the culinary excellence of contemporary chefs and culinary entrepreneurs. In the last few months, we have hosted Chef Stephanie Izard of The Girl and the Goat, Chef Meg Bickford of the historic Commander's Palace in New Orleans, and Chef Nancy Silverton of the Michelin-starred Osteria Mozza, and Jean Quan, the Buddhist temple chef. Alexis Readinger has been at the heart of the hospitality world in Los Angeles for decades. In 2005, she founded Preen Incorporated, an internationally recognized and award-winning architect firm to support chefs and developers with conscious, immersive, and original work. Her work is published in Architectural Digest, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and Interior Design. Preen was named Design Firm of the Year by the World Interior News. Please join me in welcoming our special guest, Alexis Readinger.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I just do a little intro and
Yes.
get into slides?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And lose my mic. I want to tell you guys a little bit about my firm Preen. And I want to show you a little bit of projects that we've done, take you through some case studies so we can really kind of get into the depth of what it takes to have a really kicking design. And then a little bit about what we have on the horizon. And then I think Michelle and I want to open up a space for much more pragmatic inquiry too, because in my role, having been designing restaurants, I started in the late 90s. So for years and years and years in LA and beyond, we really do two functions. And one is the creative, which is really, really getting into the heart space of a chef or a restaurateur. There's nothing that's wildly practical about opening a restaurant. Like if you want to create a business, there's much easier ways to make money. And so when people do it, they do it with something like a deep passion they have inside. That's a generosity, like generosity of hospitality. And there's something they really want somebody else to get, an experience they want them to have. And there's a very specific nuance to it. And usually, you know, let's say it's a chef, they're probably very clear with the food and what that is. But there's a whole world of immersion that we create with them that continues that language. And our I'd say we're not really designing things because we want it, because we like it, like we like blue. It's actually, George Lucas said that to me.
Really?
I like blue. I'm like, good, you're getting a blue restaurant. It's a whole nother story I can tell you guys. But it's really about listening deeply, deeply to what they're up to create. And then our magic is how do we convert that into built space? The other side of the world of what we do is mic working right?
Yeah.
Or is it in and out? It's a little in and out. I mean, talk like this. The other world of what we do is the very pragmatic side, coming from the world of architecture, and it's, you know, managing all the different engineers and everything that needs to happen, nuts and bolts, to actually get a restaurant to happen, permitting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let me just I can do it like this. Because I can tell it's being weird.
Yeah.
Should we just put it right here, maybe? Yeah.
Thank you. One moment, everybody. Thank you.
Otherwise, you're facing that way, right? Talking.
Yeah.
And you need to face this way. It's flare.
I used to do that when I was a kid in
Yeah.
choir, so I could hear. Super awkward. Okay. So Preen, so we are based in historic core of Chinatown. Been down there for 10 years. This is Chungking Road, which you may or may not know from art gallery openings. Deeply embedded in Chinatown and have done, created a lot of support. I serve on the board of the Business Improvement District. And so you guys would know maybe Howlin Rays, Lisita, now serving the cookbook shop. Those are all clients and projects that we've done. That's our building interior. Those are lasers. My friend who's a physicist, it's his hobby. And a Harakoot mural that actually says, with our thoughts, we make the world. It's pretty cool. Charlie and Lola Bird, my girls, we go to work in the morning. I'm like, are you ready to go mascot?
They're so cute.
Because to preen is to condition your feathers for flight.
Oh, that's great.
Love that. They really just get in the way and chew on things, but they're charming too. Okay, so brand is such an interesting conversation. And I don't think it's one that existed in the same way it does now 30 years ago. And what's really cool, I was just listening to an Esther Perel talk last night. If you guys want to listen to something interesting, someone who talks about relationships, she's fantastic. But she was talking about how emotional intimacy has come into the workforce. And I think that's very true. There's very much a conversation of meaningfulness that needs to be in a brand for it to be communicated, beloved, right? And so part of that brand is actually the design of the space too. And that's a different conversation. We'll get in that. So if you look at something like Howlin Rays, this is a branded, like the original one in Chinatown, and then we did Pasadena, et cetera, et cetera. It's a branded box. It's a full immersion. I can't remember if that's my case study, but I'll show you guys something when we get there. Okay, I want to show you an old quote, which I can't read, but it's basically Jonathan Gold when he went into Hatfields, which is a restaurant. Jonathan. Okay, good. Yeah. That was actually a question mark for me. When he went into Hatfields, which I have the picture, and you guys would know the picture maybe from over here.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the time because I was just not paying attention. But he talks about that because they had a little tiny restaurant before. It wasn't until he went into the space, their new space, the space that we had done, and that sort of grandness of that he actually realized how well they cooked.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the rare times that he talks about a space in a very subtle way.
Yeah.
He didn't usually. Yeah. It's cool. So that's that photo. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to run you through just a couple projects really quick. We work on all scales, all locations, so like fast casual, Michelin level, big budget, small budget. Just kind of want to work with cool people. This is actually in a reservation, in Arizona, steakhouse,
wow.
Sort of corporate ownership. You wouldn't, in so many ways, it's not necessarily where the project that we thought we would be jumping into. And yet it was very important to us to create something that mapped with the landscape, because to that tribe, the landscape is sacred. And they also were doing a steakhouse with a French technique. So you figure out how that all goes together. But we basically created inversions that start to mirror and invert what's happening outside with a very French stylization.
Beautiful.
Thank you. This one is I don't know, is Paul here? We just opened this in Brentwood. It's for Thatcher Baker Briggs. He he's a very, very sophisticated, like awesome som into European wines, not naturals. But there's these crazy speakers. If there's any audiophiles here, they're impressive, important speakers. And tube amps. So he's got turntables, and it's a whole tasting room.
Oh, that's cool.
The recently closed Alimento. But I love this image, so I wanted to keep it in. This is down in Irvine. Solstice services a bunch of attorneys in that complex, and people in Orange County. They don't have as much like F&B.
Right.
Lasita. Have any of you guys been to Lasita? This is really interesting. It's in Chinatown, Far East Plaza, over by Howlin, and Chase, Steph, and Nico. Nico is burning fires in the culinary world right now. He's getting a lot of attention. We did this on a tiny shoestring budget, and they got written like New York Times as like the 25 best restaurants in LA.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's really cool. Howlin, y'all know.
Who's been there?
That's it.
Who's been to the one in Pasadena?
Oh, this is the Pasadena one.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. Who's been to Chinatown?
Yeah. A couple of you? Well, you've got some places to go.
Cool. I just went to Pao Zhao yesterday. Has anyone been there? It's in one of those like malls in K-Town on Western.
Oh, really? No, I haven't been.
Dumplings. It's good.
Yeah.
This is in Long Beach. You might know it.
Oh.
The Gaucho Beach project.
Oh, yes. I've been in there.
This one's causing a lot of confusion for people because the city won't let there be, it's half owned by it's owned by the city, and the restaurateur has a tenant lease, and the city won't allow like a proper host. And
wow.
So part of it's like a window, part of it, no one knows how to be in the space.
Right.
And they're upset about it.
It's pretty though. It's a great location.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, I did it again. I'll just hold it. Socolo, Susan Feniger. That's on Santa Monica.
Yeah, that's great. She's been here and spoken to the students.
Oh, I love Susan.
Yeah.
She's a powerhouse. This is Bricia Lopez, who owns Guelaguetza.
Yes.
And we designed an architectural home for Fernando and everybody in Oaxaca.
Beautiful.
And this is actually the competition for the restaurant in the Lucas Museum. I'm not supposed to talk about it. It's undisclosed.
Oh, undisclosed secret.
But we won the competition, and then they made a dramatic change. So we're not doing it.
Yeah.
But Pine and Crane, downtown LA. This is Hot Tongue Pizza in Silver Lake.
That's cute.
Yeah, Alex, some clients and developers. Actually, I want to say really quick, the list isn't so important for you guys, but I think the conversation of where money is in food right now may be interesting to you.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about it. And one of the things that we're seeing is like the independent restaurateur, like there's not a lot of Bavels getting built right now. And it's always, there's been this like chef and independent restaurateur kind of restaurant. And I think it's really, the business model is really tenuous. The traditional business model would be like fast casual. So you're seeing, and we have been seeing for the past 10, 15 years, like really awesome, playful concepts pop up from superstar chefs. And so still seeing a lot of that. And another place where the funding is coming from is bigger developers that are doing like apartment buildings or hotels. They Rich, they probably
Right.
don't want it. It's weird again, isn't it? It's my shirt.
I think it's
Flippy.
the shirt. Do you want a handheld one? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get that. for you.
Okay. Yes. Is it? Okay, it's working.
Yeah.
Just let her hook me.
Sorry about that. I totally
Yeah,
think it's just
yeah.
part. This
No, I feel
should
more
be
empty.
consistent for you. Yeah,
Thank you.
there you go. You're official.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The other place the funding's coming from in F&B is big developers who have hotels, apartment buildings, and need to amenitize and activate their asset. And so the amount of money, if we're talking about $1 million, $5 million restaurant, that's a ton of money for someone who's starting a venture, but that might be a small percentage of a $60 million building. So they're
Right.
willing to cover a lot of the costs. So we do a lot of like courtship dancing. Like we know so-and-so's looking for a chef or a restaurateur in this space. And we do a lot of introductions for that.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Couple, I think there's 3 case studies in here that just really look at a little deeper at design. How many of you guys are interested in design? Okay.
Yeah.
We got some.
You got some.
Well, hopefully maybe it'll get the rest of you more interested. It's really, really important, right? Because in the conversation of brand, like if I am a patron and I go into space, I don't know why I might not have any relationship to design at all, but when things aren't lined up and that meaningfulness isn't clearly communicated, everybody senses it, right? And no one really knows why, but it causes businesses to malfunction. And so this is a project we did, I don't know, last year or so, which has been there for 60 something years. And it's called Dino's, and it's on Pico over in the Greek part. Has anyone ever been to Dino's? Cool.
There we go.
Yay. They're sort of famous for their spice blend and sauce, and it comes on this, and your fries get a little soggy, and it's good. And it is 4 sisters who grew up in it, inherited it from their father who passed. And there's like a whole family feud going on where like there's a couple other Dinos that aren't their Dinos. Where there was like a cousin who was like, women can't run a restaurant. So they contacted us to redo it. And I want to show you just a couple of the befores. It's a little bit rough, the neighborhood. I was shooting the project at like 4 a.m. and I was just like, well. And they're like, the sisters are like, the place needs to be indestructible because they're like, the taggers were here at 5 a.m., but then they were back to get breakfast at 7. And they're really great. They feed the homeless and they take care of people. They're really cool. So not an iconic building at all. And it, you've just got your sort of Spanish tile. Can really see in or anything at all, and no real thought to graphics, brand, signage, other than their great old historic sign. That was the interior. And what we did for them was we wanted to give them something that had a slight reference in a subtle way to their Greek heritage. We wanted something that was very LA mid-century to honor kind of their roots, but something that was like clean and fresh, unlike any other place that could then potentially be translated to other locations if they wanted. There's a little bit of the sort of roadside diner thing with the umbrellas going on, and the tile choices like the sepia tile and the chartreuse. Those are very period to the 70s, which is kind of their origin too. Honestly, we're constantly replacing furniture because this place is I keep thinking we've got it dialed, and then. But yeah, these are the sepia tints on the window, and all of our lighting is really, really specific. But I'm going to talk about that more in another project. And then we opened up that box there so you could kind of see in, but obscured it so you're not seeing too much. To this sort of really creative light that goes up.
Yeah, that light's interesting.
Thank you. Let's see.
Very cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Origin of place. Which one do I? This is Tess. I think Tess is going to close. It's going to be the 76th, this one, this year. Right. I don't know. I don't know when exactly. But they're at the end of their initial 5-year lease. Usually restaurants do 5, 10, 15, or like 5-year with a 10-year option.
Right.
So you'll see those closures happen unless they're just really hemorrhaging. But just because they're going to shift, this is sort of next to AKA Hotels, which is an extended stay sort of boutique hotel. And they want something nightclubby in there. And it's interesting when we did test, the chef is Raphael Francois. He's also in DC where he was Michelin starred, French. Sounds French.
Yeah.
And with Jordan Ogron, who's wine, who came out of Bestia, and Bill Chait, who is sort of infamous in LA for being the mastermind behind a bunch of restaurants from Republique to Bestia, et cetera, et cetera. This was done in partnership with CIM, which is a development group. It was also done in partnership with Fred Siegel, which has been such an iconic piece of LA, like as a clothing brand, and actually just went defunct as well. Fred Siegel always had an F&B component inside of it. And Creative Artists Agency bought the rights and exported Fred Siegel to Tokyo, and they put in F&B concept, and it didn't do very well. So what Test was originally designed for was to be the complement for Fred Siegel's worldwide expansion, which is not going to happen.
Space, yeah. But
Thank you. And I think I have a picture here. So you can see Fred Siegel's got a very iconic facade that had always been there, and it's a 6-inch white push-pull tile, this sort of Americana striping to their facade, and then a creeping vine. And when we designed Test, we wanted to reference but differentiate. And so I want to go back to that first slide again and show you that there's a wine shop, Botelier, in there as well. And we really wanted to talk about the terroir. And so we wanted an earthy tile that would sort of be in the same pattern as Fred Siegel, but at some points be twisted and it's like the darker psyche of complementing the brand and that sort of deeply impregnated facade. This also has a conversation about pixelization on Sunset Strip, which is full of digital billboards. This is like a literally pixelated earth building.
yeah, interesting.
On the interior, one of the original conversations was to pick up on the sort of 60s Laurel kind of roots of Sunset Strip and reference a bit, which we did a lot in the actual finishes. And interestingly, on this project, there's some funky layout moves. One is the host just jammed up right by the front door. It originally was supposed to have turntables on it too, and that didn't happen. We put in this counter for individual diners, really thinking about local residents, that if the place were super busy, you would know that you could kind of come in and get a spot. And it also creates this all strange looking relationship that's different. And that was a bit of an experiment. And I think that actually worked really well, according to clients.
Yeah.
What did not work well was this communal table right by the front door, which you have to hold until you have all your party there. So you walk in and there's always an empty table unless the large party is. I would never do that again. And then this was another experiment too, putting love seats, because we wanted, I mean, the restaurant's all dining, but there's a bar. And so we wanted to sort of bridge lounge to dining. And so those tables are at tea height. They're lower than a normal table. And they work as 2 deuces or as a 4. As a 4, it's not a big deal. As 2 deuces, it can be really interesting as like a social experiment, because you're putting 2 parties on a love seat together that don't know each other. And sometimes they look at each other and it's awkward. But they exchange pleasantry and then they sort of become a team.
Yeah.
So they get banded, and then their energy becomes like them versus the other people in the restaurant.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How
And
would you
we
guys
like,
feel about that, sitting right next to another party?
no.
Depends on the night. Depends on who, right?
But if you go into La Poubelle, the tables are like boom, 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 boom. It's not
Yeah.
really any different.
Right.
It's just isolated. How am I doing time-wise? So I want to make sure.
Yeah. 12:30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Speed up a little. Okay. Okay. Big, huge 9,000-pound concrete open kitchen.
Wow.
And also seating right there, because this is right at the tail end of the disruption around food and people wanting to be like right on the line for interest. I think that's shifting out now. And then booths for people who don't. That's the wine room.
Pretty.
Thank you. Conversation about inclusion to honor this
Mhm.
LA. Okay. And last case study. This is Max and Brian. Max is Brian moved back to the East Coast. So these are the chefs behind Piccalilli in Culver City. Pretty amazing. We went and looked at several locations for them. This was a Pieology. It was a dreadful location, but on the corner. And I was excited about that. So we recommended they take this spot. The chefs they like bright tropical, like Jamie Jones, like we wear like flamingos on our shirt kind of vibe. They also really love apocalyptic darkness.
It's like the opposite.
Yeah. And we designed a dual brand for them. We don't usually do brand, but if we have the bandwidth, we will. It's fun sometimes. There's 2 brands. There's the Piccalilli, which is like the mustard sprig. And then there's the moth, which is the shadow. There's a whole conversation about shadow occurring. And we designed this place to be a waypoint in the future where 2 lovers can hope to meet when all has failed. And then if you know Nighthawks, that Hopper painting where you're looking outside and there's the 2 people at the little bar, that was sort of a reference. We opened right before COVID. And so is a little too prophetic and close and weird. And they pulled together really good. We helped them with patio, and they're doing great. And it's low Asian and southern eastern seaboard.
Wow.
On those tables on the right, I'm going to talk about lighting just a little bit, and I'll move on. We designed the first architectural blacklight lighting ever for this restaurant. There's blacklight lighting under the bar just for ambiance. But on the right are the more focused dining tables. The chefs use a lot of color in their food, like borage and nasturtium, and there's greens. And lighting is very specific when you put it on food. If you put incandescent lighting, which is the lighting that most people have and feel comfortable with, on salad, it turns it brown. You get mud.
Wow.
And so we wanted to use jeweler's lighting, but that's usually too white, blue for people to feel comfortable. So I don't know if you can see it. Maybe it's easier now. You see those pipes are very trained specifically at a certain level. So they do not touch a person, but they hit just on the table. And we partnered those with blacklight lights up ahead so that they would further illuminate any color in the dish. And what's kind of cool is when you pick up your fork, you get a gray shadow. You get the moth, but you also get like a lavender, sort of ultraviolet shadow too, which is back to their tropical, playful.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Very subtle, not, it's one of those things people feel, and some people would ask questions about. A little bit of the plating and how it all relates. The bathroom's really fun. And those were one of the animals. We made those animals in our office. I actually sanded them, and
Really?
my partner painted
That's
them.
cool.
Yeah. Okay. Really quickly, what are we working on? This is Odium in the Waldorf in Las Vegas. It's been on hold forever because we're waiting for the hotel to say you can move forward. Hopefully it actually goes there. But this is pretty interesting transition for Tim, for his design, for Tim.
Yes.
We love him.
This restaurant here is closing, right? We know.
Closed Sunday. This is the original Howlin, but we're expanding Chinatown now. And he's also going into Vegas, and we are the sort of creative directors for the design team for the Venetian. So that's happening. I don't know if that's public, so never mind. I didn't say anything. This is like a Korean bakery going into the arts district. It's called Natto, and we're also doing another cool project that's a little bit on the Korean tip called Yobo Darling for Michi and Michael Kim up in Menlo Park. They were Michelin starred for a project called Mom, which is MAUM back in the day. There's this crazy supper club that's going to be amazing. He can't figure out what kind of chef. He wanted Kwame. Do you guys know who that is? Yeah. But it's kind of like out of Caribbean. It's called Lucia. It'll be on Fairfax. And this is a really beautiful project up in Bishop. It's like sort of James Beard level cafe is what she wants. Mercantile Community Activation Center and hotel rooms. And it's called River Queen Provisions because much of Bishop is owned by LADWP. They hold the land, they don't do anything with it, and they use their beautiful Serpentine River to drain the Owens River Valley to build LA. So there's a lot of economy and there's loss, and her feeling is people have a tenuous relationship with their river. And so she wants to infuse sort of a healing, more feminine energy back into it. And she's working with the city to have them understand how to set up their opportunity zone funding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're building the whole thing, or like adding another floor and blah, blah, blah. That's it.
Right.
So we can
amazing. Those are all very different projects, and yet there's this continuity with it in a way, right? I think that you
Thank you.
invoke into all your projects. Fabulous.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So can you tell the students a little bit about, how does one start having a conversation with an architect designer and starting a restaurant from the beginning?
Yeah, I think when people start looking, they either love a place and they want to know who did it, or they ask their buddy, or they just start kind of going through the internet or looking on articles, press and stuff.
Yeah.
And then how do they start?
Well, with in terms of how do you pick your projects? How do you decide?
How do we?
How you're going to work with people, so that will help them understand how.
It's funny. So it's funny. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how much I can say. So we have these awesome clients. They're so funny. Has anyone ever been in? It's like North. It's not even North Hollywood. It's past to a place called Bang and Buns. And these guys are so cute. They randomly called and they're like wanted to talk about redoing one of their spots. And my feeling was they probably weren't going to be capitalized in a way that was going to make a lot of sense. And we do take care of our rookies, or they're actually not even totally rookies. They're doing really well. But like we will help people with the sort of smaller models, but I have to balance it with more capitalized projects. So, because I need my team to be able to like grow up and buy houses and do all that too. But so I was chatting with one of the guys, and we kept going through it. And I thought, let me just use this opportunity to really educate him on what could be possible for his brand. I don't think this is actually going to be a project we work on. But we just kept going into it. And he got into like the conversation of money. And I was like, it's like this. And he's like, oh, no, no, no. And I'm like, yeah, right. But like, here's what you need to know. But we touched on so many important things that they ended up coming back and saying, we just want to hire you. And we kind of fell in love with them. And so we're like, okay. But it's not like, it's actually really fun, the concept, and we're having a lot of fun with it. But it wasn't what I thought would be match up with my brand, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Does that kind of...
Well, in terms of, starting off in the very beginning with design, how does somebody who doesn't necessarily have a big capital budget put together, design for their restaurant or concept?
How do we do it for them if they don't have a lot of money? Well, I think the first thing is I request that they be really, really honest with me about, like, how much money do you want to spend? How much cushion do you have if it goes over? Because sometimes people are shy about numbers, and this is all like a business. It's a business model. There's no like shame or morality to any of it. It's just, this is what the budget is. And so like, let's say with Chase and stuff for Lasita, that was Lhasa before Chase's brother left the project. And he wanted to convert it to reflect the new concept, which is sort of like very Filipino, sunsetty, beachy vibes, kind of. And he wanted to spend $65,000 or something, which is really very, very, very light in the world of it. And I'm like, okay, well, so you can have paint. We have to have something for lighting because that matters a lot. And how do I begin to like create your space where there's levels to it and intimacy? Because right now it's just a big room with loose furniture. And we've all been in those places a million times. They're not inspiring. And so there's a very specific way that we like two-toned. Like I didn't want to rip out the old paneling, which is there from the Chinese restaurant from like the 60s before it was the pho place in the 70s, like, because we don't have any money to replace anything. So it's like really deep, intense color immersion. And we went with the like peachies because that was in his brand deck. And he had been green before, so we needed to really fully switch. And when there's not a lot of money, if I can create like a super intensity of color, it gets a really powerful experience from not having to be terribly expensive. And then it's lined. So like it's up this much peach, and then it tones on to a different color, and then it tones differently on the roof too. And that's significant because it's just like a surgery technique and design that does something that's more interesting than just doing a wall and a ceiling. And then we needed amazing lighting. So it's like these big canvas boxes on wood stretchers because it's intimate, and it's warm, it's cheap. And then the really important thing about that restaurant is the staging of the seating. And when he first opened, he wanted a big share table at the front, which was more like, they might use it for service. They might seat it. They're not really sure. Then there's like wood banquette and seating that's like dining height, low back. And then behind it, really high back, going the other way, booths that are wood also, just stained darker. So it basically creates an arena-ing in the restaurant. Because that's what you want, is you want engagement. You want people to be able to look into that space, feel really good in theirs. want to come back next time, sit over there.
Yes.
Like have enough that people flirt with each other. You know, they're not thinking of it that is that, but no one, you don't go to a restaurant to be alone.
Right.
So you want some sort of social energy. Yeah, but you kind of want to feel like you've got your space and you're safe. And then you're kind of curious.
Yeah, that's very true.
We went like $15,000 over budget on that one.
Yeah.
But I told Chase, I was like, it matters. This deeply matters. And you got to believe in yourself. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't think this was going to be the like extra little bump that was going to push you over. Yeah.
So they spent 80?
It was like, maybe they were at 85. I can't remember. I think it's 85 at the end. That's really low.
What's the average project look like in the world of design?
If I was going to build, we looked at another project for them that a developer was going to pay for a lot of it. And it was going to be, how many square feet? I don't know. Like a good sized restaurant, but it needed full kitchen build. And we were estimating that at about 4.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah. If you're building, like everybody, all the seasoned restaurateurs are looking for a second generation. A lot of people will get in, they'll build out a gorgeous restaurant with a kitchen. They're not seasoned. The restaurant doesn't perform. And then the guys that have been around for a while are just like perfect.
Yeah, taking over that space that already has the bones of what you need or want in your design.
Yeah, all the money's in the kitchen. And we'd say like if we're building a good looking, good restaurant for a great chef, I'd say like, it could be like $800 a square foot.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, 500, 800.
So that's that range. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you're not seeing a lot of brand new Bavels, right?
Right. Can you talk to them a little bit about, timelines? How long does it take to either transform an existing space if we were taking over a second generation or build out from scratch?
Yeah. So from scratch build out, if you don't have a lot of corporate entities, because then there's layers of review, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say I'm working with a restaurateur, it was 3 months on this, and we're pretty fast. I think not all firms are this fast either, but 3 months on all the pre-design, getting into construction drawings, getting everything ready to go in for permit. Then we need about 3 months in City of LA for a permit, and then 6 months on the build.
About 6 months.
If it's, more of a kiosky kind of little small thing, things can happen a lot faster. And sometimes I can't professionally say we'll work without a permit. Sometimes we'll put in an incomplete set to the city to start the permitting process further, and then we go in and flush it out. Or we'll just try to, like the permitting process, there's so many permits one needs. It's like you think of a building permit, but there's also like industrial waste, There's like all these different departments.
The main ones
building, so nothing falls on someone's head and kills somebody, which is also fire, accessibility, and all that stuff in there. And then health, which is pretty simple. They're just going to have weird requirements around finishes and windows. And then the other thing is, if you're trying to get a property entitled to be able to serve alcohol, it's called a conditional use permit, a CUP, and that's the planning department. And that's about a year-long process. Yeah. So ideally, you're looking for a built-out kitchen where you don't have to change anything, that's entitled for alcohol, and where there's not a lot of key money that you have to pay to acquire it. Or create a partnership with your landlord.
How
often does that happen? And do the landlords, put in partial payment for the build out? Does that happen?
That's the bulk of what I'm seeing right now, but it's the developer landlord.
Right.
So it's definitely a more corporate thing. We're looking at quite a few of those right now.
Oh, interesting.
Once it gets more corporate, you lose the beauty of like the chef, the restaurateur, in a way that so much in F&B world is from the gut,
Right.
as opposed to like developing an iPhone where they need like focus groups and.
True. Do you guys have questions? Yeah, a couple here, over here. Okay. Oh, we'll do the mic over here. Hang on.
Speak into this.
So when you say you give a cushion, if they don't have that money for the cushion, but you've already did the stuff, how does that work?
Well, our clients are in the driver's seat, right? Because it's not our money. So our fees are negotiated way before. So we all know what that is. That's at the beginning. But when it comes to like construction budget or FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment procurement, which we do for them. Let's say we get the construction bid back and it's just more than what they have. Then we sit there and we VE it, we value engineer. And I'm like, do you want to get rid of the wallpaper in the bathroom? Or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we'll try to switch in alternate finish as much as we can to kind of keep the thing. But if it's too far off, then we just have to eliminate things or look at phasing the project.
Okay.
Yeah. Or
So-
sometimes it's like, well, let's buy those chairs at Target, even though we know they're not environmental. They're from China. They're going to break in a year, but that's all we can afford right now.
And then you'll replace them as needed.
And then once they're making money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you're talking about the sort of more corporate, top-down kind of projects that you're engaged in, do they become your client and then you're looking for the chef to pair with it? Or are you always sort of chef, first and then pairing them with a corporate interest?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. I like bringing those projects to my chef friends because I'm like, here, they want to give you money.
Yeah.
I came up through chefs, working with chefs. I was really quite shy when I started my business and didn't know how to language what we could do for someone. And so chefs and architects are really similar in some ways. Like we have a rigorous, like in architecture school, we're treated terribly. And it's like it requires physical stamina and acuity, and you learn to like speak and take care of things. And there's a lot of integrity to the rigor. And so I see a lot of parallel. And then there's an artist to artist thing too. So when I got out of grad school and then working for people and started my own, I was like, with the chef, I could be like, oh, it's like aquamarine, and like show a picture and the chef is like, yes. And the corporate money guy, I'm like, I don't know what to do with you. Yeah, I think I lost the Connie and Ted's project because, well, I had all these feathers braided in my hair, and somebody else walked by with a feather mohawk right around while we were having the meeting, and he's like, "Oh, look at that!" And then I got super self-conscious, but it was Craig Nikoloff. Do you remember the cheesecake?
Yeah.
I mean the claim jumper guy.
Yeah.
But he was very financial conversation. I was young, and I was like. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it sounds as though you have to bridge it. You're at times.
Yeah, I mean, corporate world
Yeah.
is really easy. I don't know how familiar you're probably is cover your ass. Everyone's secret fear is getting fired. So there's a lot of box checking. So for us, it's just making sure to have them know that we're reliable, we know our shit, and they can trust us. And then the real journey in a design partnership is with the vision, with the creative. Mhm.
Yeah. I think we had another question here. Yeah.
For the 4 to 4.5 million project you're talking about, do you remember how many customers could be seated in that one?
Not off the top of my head. I want to say, because there's always an indoor-outdoor conflation with that too.
Okay,
100? I can't remember.
I see.
I'd have to look. And then if I were a deal guy,
Mhm.
I'd be like, blah, 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 because we're going to do 4 million, like whatever,
Mhm.
like the restaurateurs can do it like that.
I see.
I'd have to sit and do math.
Gotcha. And do you have like a general breakdown for like a cost percentage of each project? Like how much goes towards the kitchen? How much goes towards like paint, wall, flooring?
We don't have it quantified like that. That's been coming up with some of our developer friends,
Mhm.
so we could help them better cost estimate.
I see. But
Um,
I'm assuming it's pretty different then from restaurant to restaurant, or
yeah, and it's also how many favors can happen, where it's happening, like how smart your contractor is. There's a lot of factors, but kitchens are kitchens. I mean, they cost.
Mhm.
And we were working on a core and shell. Actually, we've been working on it forever because our sweet client hired a complicated contractor who sold him on how much money he was going to save. And he's trying to do things that are sort of a little bit too far from industry standard. So like, why are you using a captive air hood? I'm like, that's actually the only company. Even the other brands are owned by them. Like, and it's just, it's complicated.
Got it. One more question, sorry. You were saying how it can take about like an hour, or not an hour, a year to get liquor license. Is it common for restaurants to not have the license by the time they open and they have to wait it out, or do they like wait to open from the people that you've worked with?
The city's been doing things to make things help, sort of. Beer and wine's pretty easy to get.
Mm-hmm.
And so people will open with beer and wine and then apply for liquor if they want to get going. There's a lottery in September. They don't give out a ton, but they give out a liquor. Some people get drawn and they get a liquor license. It's like 10,000 times more affordable than buying one on the open market.
Yeah.
I think how much are they going for now? Like somebody's saying they spent like $250,000.
Yeah.
They've really gotten up there.
Yeah. The lottery's the way to go if you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's also parking too, like the assembly bill. There's a new assembly bill. If you're near a transit stop, you don't have to have parking, which is huge for restaurants, because we used to have to like pay to covenant parking spots in another person's parking lot. It's very expensive. And yeah.
Oh, that's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Okay.
I sort of just wanted to ask about your experience as like a business founder and like the beginning of it, and why you sort of chose to start your own business, and just what that was like in general.
Thank you. It's funny. I was doing Vivian Koo and I were doing a thing at Noy House together. And somebody asked the question, they said, this is for Vivian because since she's a business owner, I want to know. And I was like,
you're like, wait a minute.
Why did I start it? I mean, why does anybody ever start something? It's take this job and shove it, right? It's been a wild ride. I like to say I gave my youth and beauty. We're going to hit year 20 at the end of the year. If you guys are in Chinatown on the parade day for Chinese New Year, come down Chungking Road and you'll find us. We'll have a party.
You're all invited.
Yes. Yeah, we open it up too.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, it's fun. You just come.
Wow.
It's a lot of fun. Question was why and how? I actually got laid off, but it was the right time. I had already sort of been taking some little bit of projects on the side. And the work, I think a lot of the small design businesses have a very hard time functioning financially, or at least everyone I've ever seen. It's just like the economy and it's tight. And so I was ready. I had no money and I had this like POS old Range Rover from the 80s that if I was driving on the freeway, it would just like wrench to the side. It's totally scary. And I was putting everything on my credit cards. And I got this project in Ontario, a sushi project. And I was like, I think I have enough gas to get there. Like, yeah. And that's kind of where I started and just was scrappy and in debt for a while until it got better. Yeah. Huh?
How many losses you take before you feel like you got better?
How many lost?
Yes, like
Yeah.
when you first start off, you should charge this, but you didn't charge this, so it's like you lost.
Oh my God, I'm still figuring it out. Yeah, it's a really weird thing. It's like, do you charge before you know what your business model needs? And it's a service model. So it's not like I don't sell a widget. So it's like, do we charge our full value? You know what I mean? And like, honestly, on the fee side, there's like out of the firms in LA that do restaurants, we're right at the top as far as creativity and work product and space that we do. There's a little bit of, and most of my colleagues, so the sort of boutique F&B design firms, I think we're sort of around each other fee wise. We don't. I joke we get together to price fix, but I actually don't know exactly what they're charging. But there's one other strata above of design firms that charges obscene amounts because they're ballsy. I don't even know, but I started to notice them doing less restaurants because I think just the business model can't hold it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to build a viable business. Otherwise, it's terrible for everybody, right?
Any other questions? Okay, we have one more over here. This will be the last one.
If you feel like you can't like take on a project, can you like refer them to maybe like a firm you think is a better fit for them? Or?
Yeah, we'll refer things that are a little bit out of our wheelhouse. Like my friend wanted someone to look at his roof for his HOA. I'm like, I don't know anything about really big roofs. Or if it's, but usually if we fall in love, we're going to try to keep it. Yeah.
And that relationship building is important, I would imagine, with design and the chefs that you work with.
Yeah, it's really important because it's stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's very specific moments in the project where I'm like, this is the ugly duckling moment.
Yeah.
Where 3 things have come in and they look weird by themselves and it's upsetting because this is not beautiful. We're in that moment right now. You know, it's pretty predictable.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, any final
Yeah.
thoughts for our students as they continue on their journey through?
I love it. Yeah, you guys, thank you so much for your attention. And if any of you have any more questions or something comes up for you, my contact's there. Feel free to reach out. And I think, I don't know, go out and eat.
Thank you, Alexis. We really appreciate you. Thank you. I know, right?